What you are watching right now are tiny organisms called geneites. They are choosing mates, creating offsprings, passing down their genes and then dying. Their children then continue the endless circle of life. This is a simulation I designed to understand the difference between pattern of gene flow across generations when this happens randomly versus when this is imposed by nature's selection and survival. It did lead me to a mini-existential crisis that has partially challenged my original hypothesis that directions arise simply from constraints in nature. We discussed this in our previous episode, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start by getting introduced with a geneite. In our setup, we have 500 geneites. A geneite is just a tiny haploid organism with 5 different variations of a gene. This gene carries information of just one trait, color. For each color, we have one allele giving the color. These alleles have scores. Violet scores the highest and red the lowest. These scores are called trait scores, T. So now the question is, in this simulation, how does the flow of genes occur? Geneites can mate with anyone. There are no sexes. When two geneites mate, genetic inheritance works just like reality, completely random. Dominance, recessiveness, power, none of that matters. The offspring simply inherits one of the 2 parent alleles chosen by chance. So yeah, the mechanics of simulation. In this world, the total population capacity of geneites is 500. Initially, there are 100 copies of each allele. Then they mate randomly and create offsprings. So the next lot of 500 geneites is filled after a round of random mating. And then the parent generations die after all the slots are filled and the cycle continues. To illustrate the difference between random gene flow and constraint gene flow, we compared 2 conditions: selections turned off, random, and selections turned on, constraint-driven. This selection, when present, acts at the stage just before an offspring fills a slot. An offspring is always created randomly, but whether it survives is determined probabilistically by the trait score we discussed earlier. In trial B, where selection is turned on, each offspring geneite receives a probability of survival based on its trait score. After creation, the offspring must pass this survival check. If it does not survive, it dies, and the slot remains empty until another offspring tests this constraint. If it survives, it is allowed to fill a slot. So here, gene creation and inheritance are still random, but survival is constrained by the score. In trial A, however, where selection is turned off, everything remains purely random. Geneites mate randomly, produce offspring, and every offspring, regardless of its trait, automatically fills a slot. As a result, all 500 slots are filled without any filtering, making the entire process fully random with no selection pressure. The selection in this simulation is the mathematical backbone of the model. We know that each allele has a score called trait score, T. In real life, this represents how efficient an allele is at performing a certain task in a cell. Using this score, a probability score is generated based on the function Ps equals t raised to c. The c in this function is a constraint factor. Think of it like the scarcity of resource. A higher c means more scarcity, and scarcity is nature's way of imposing a constraint. C equals 0 means nature does not impose any constraint, and this corresponds to trial A. C greater than 0 means there is a constraint, and this corresponds to trial B. So then, this probability score is then compared to a universal random number, U, between 0 and 1. If this probability score is higher than the number, the offspring survives and fills the slot. And if lower, then the offspring dies. This step is just a way of manifesting the probability score into an action of either death or survival. So, we have in a way manufactured selection depending on the quality of the trait to survive. If we see all the possible ranges of this value of Ps for different T and C, we get this graph. If the constraint is 0, no matter what the value of t, Ps equals to 1. So there is no selection or offspring survive. When constraint increases, gradually probability of survival of larger trait score increases. C equals 1, where trait score is linearly determinant. Finally, if we use logarithm scale to compress the findings up to infinite, it shows that as constraint increases, higher trait score becomes more and more favorable for survival. So, we have baked our fundamental logic into the simulation mathematically. Now, let's see what the Geneites are doing. I ran the simulation for 100 generations across 10 different runs for c equals 0, trial A, and c equals 0.8, trial B. In each of the runs, I found one common result and one different result. If you see in the right side, across 100 generations consistently violate, the one with the highest rate score and probability of survival score becomes the dominant and resultant Geneite across all the runs. But in the left side, where constraint is 0, surprisingly there also seems to be a dominant Geneite each time. Though not as dominant, but each time a randomly chosen Geneite becomes dominant. Example, in this run, blue emerges as dominant, while in this one, yellow is the dominant one. I built this tool to visualize all these results in a comprehensive way. This graph is a pentagon with our 5 alleles acting as 5 vertices. The more the allele, the centroid gets pulled more towards that vertex. So this gives us both direction and magnitude of displacement from the start. At start, the centroid is at exact center as we have 100 Geneites each. So let's say in a run, the composition of Geneites change and become primarily violet Geneites. Then the centroid moves towards violet. More the dominance, that is more the number of resultant Geneite, more is the magnitude of displacement of the centroid. If we see the results from both simulations, we can easily observe two patterns. Direction emerges in both trials. Even in trial A with no selection pressure, population consistently evolved towards single allele dominance. This is what sent me into a mini-existential crisis. My hypothesis was simple. Directions arise just from constraint in nature. Random systems should wander aimlessly. Only constraints should create consistent directional change. When I first ran trial A, I saw clear directional evolution and thought I had made an error. There must be hidden selection somewhere. But running it again revealed the interesting truth. Directions emerged toward a completely different allele. After running all the 10 runs, the pattern became clear. I had discovered two fundamentally different types of direction. One, constraint-driven direction, trial B, repeatable, predictable. Two, drift-driven direction, trial A, inevitable but random. Why this shook me? This meant direction, something I had always interpreted as evidence of underlying purpose or constraint, could emerge from pure randomness. The universe doesn't need constraints to appear directional, it just needs time. And actually, it is impossible for someone like us inside a run to determine whether the direction we are observing is from trial A or trial B. But even if we can't determine from inside a single run whether our direction is drift or constraint, nature does give us something close to our workaround. In biology, independent lineages have separately converged on the same solutions: eyes, warm-bloodedness, flight, without sharing a common origin. Each of these is effectively an independent run. Well, closest thing to it, at least from inside a simulation. And when independent runs converge on the same outcome, that's exactly the signature that separates trial B from trial A in our simulations. So, what did I learn? I learned that while we can never be fully certain from inside our own run, convergent evolution is the strongest evidence biology offers, making the direction we observe most likely to be constraint-driven, not just drift that happened to land somewhere. Okay? Hopefully you enjoyed. Like me, I really do enjoy making these episodes, and thank you for your support. And one last thing, this graph, if you see this line, it is curved while it's way too violet and not straight. What do you think might be the reason behind it? I will see you in the comments, and thank you again.